The Unfiltered by Jade.
Jade. Welcome to The Unfiltered by Jade, where we educate, empower, and entertain. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, download, donate, and make everybody know about this.
Shopping assistance, your style, your budget. Our services include online and local shopping for individuals and businesses, personal shopping, purchasing of company and office supplies, importing and exporting small packages across Jamaica and worldwide, and helping you find unique gifts and items for all events and occasions. Contact us at 876-919-5195 or shoppingassistance2015@gmail.com. Shopping Assistance, your style, your budget.
Welcome back to The Unfiltered by Jade. Today we have with us here Perri. She was here before when we were talking about different things that has to do with postpartum pregnancy. So she's here with us again, and we're going to speak about helping mothers in the workplace, and this is going to be an interesting topic. So even before we jump into it, I'm going to say hi, Perri. How are you? How are you doing?
Hi, Jade. I'm good. Thanks so much for having me back.
No problem. Good to have you here. So for those who don't know who you are and what you do, can you please tell our audience?
My name is Perri Borish, and I am the founder and a psychotherapist at Whole Heart Reproductive Mental Health. We're located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, although we are licensed in something like, 38 states across the country.
That's big.
Yeah, and our specialty is reproductive mental health across the female lifespan. That is why I think I'm here today to talk about how to support, better support working mothers in the workplace.
Yes. Sounds good. And I mean, it's going to be a good conversation because I think we need to have this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
It's important. I want you to tell us there first, is there a need to help mothers in the workplace? Why?
Yes, absolutely. I think there's two big needs that I want to just focus on for today. Although I think there's lots of little needs probably, but I think companies should focus on creating diverse, inclusive work environments across all levels of their organizations, because retaining and promoting women at senior levels of organizations will increase their company's performance. There was actually McKinsey's Women in the Workplace report came out in 2022, and it found that companies that had more than 30% of their executives who were female tended to outperform companies without 10 to 30% of female leaders. And that's really significant.
Yes, it is.
The Fortune 500 companies with the highest representation of women on their boards financially outperform companies with the lowest representation of women on their boards.
So women make a difference.
A huge difference.
Okay.
The gender diversity is super important in the workplace. And then the other big reason is companies should have an interest in supporting the mental health of their employees.
Nice.
So the same way work can impact your mental health can impact your work, right? And your job performance and productivity. And there's even recent estimates that suggest that the mental health cost, I think the global economy $1 trillion annually in lost productivity, absenteeism, and staff turnover. And so there's also daily stressors too, right? Including long hours, understaffing, lack of support for new moms, harassment in the workplace, and all of that stuff can ramp up the stress levels and contribute to mental health problems such as anxiety, depression, and substance abuse. And then, in particular, the postpartum period is a particularly heightened time or vulnerable time for women to have mental health issues.
So people need to educate the work environment or the workplace about this.
Exactly, exactly.
What are some of the expectations though of the workplace for a mom?
Okay, yeah. It's hard to sort of answer in one or two sentences because, again, every company has a different policy. Um, and there's tons of working mothers who don't get maternity leave at all,
Hmm.
right? Or they have to go on something called disability to get the leave, or they get
Why?
partial pay
Why?
because our it's not standard in our country. Um, so um, you know,
But I suppose I'm having a problem with that because it's not a disability. Why do you have to sign up for disability leave to get that time off? You're pregnant and having a child, that's maternity leave, so it should not fall into that category.
I 100% agree. But that's where we need some policy changes in the corporations themselves and also federally. But yes, it's extremely problematic.
Yeah, that is. Is it a company's responsibility to provide for a working mom?
I believe yes. A new parent's biggest challenge is their biggest challenges, right? Are childcare, time management, guilt, and confidence, right? Confidence in terms of like coming back after you've been out for a leave, focus on, yourself and your baby, right? And coming back and being worried that, perhaps you're not as sharp as you once were, or that your job might be under scrutiny, or people aren't sure you can hack it, so to speak. A company has the responsibility to provide clear communication, flexibility, and transparency to their employees. And so we also hear like many people who are applying for work these days say that a company with a mental health culture or mental health benefits will play an important part in deciding whether or not they're going to work for that company or come back to that company.
I agree.
Yeah. And so, companies who are not proactively investing in mental health are going to fall behind in attracting and retaining talent, in my opinion. Right. And the most efficient workers that you can have, of course, are working moms. I read something Rachel Berkeley said. She's the founder of a children's clothing company called Thimble Collection. And she said that in managing, this is a quote, actually, I wrote it down. In managing our teams of mothers, I have found the more freedom and flexibility we give to them to be parents first, the more committed they are to our organization.
Right.
Right. And so she said, when someone knows that they can take off to take care of a sick child or something unexpected happens, that same person will then step up,
Right. They'll give more.
right, in an effort to help somebody else who needs flexibility.
Mm. What are the reasons though for the non-support of moms currently? What are the reasons?
The reasons of that they're not getting support. I
Right.
think I think it's a lack of understanding in part. I think that there's still a lot of I don't think that there's as much awareness around pregnancy and postpartum and what can happen when things don't go well, right? When there's a mood disorder or in pregnancy or a mood disorder in postpartum or when there's birth trauma. But even when there's just a regular, normal, healthy pregnancy and a normal birth, right? The way our brains change after pregnancy and how we have to reprioritize our lives and the transition to motherhood, I think is not something that corporate America has really spent tons of time thinking about or training their managers on how to identify mental health issues in their workers, and also providing them with resources to be able to even support um, their employees.
What can employers better do to support the mom?
So I think, first of all, they have to understand that the necessity of mental health in the workplace, right? At baseline. They don't have to be an expert, but they have to arm their managers with tools to identify mental health issues and give them the tools to help support their employees, right? Um, so it's interesting because also there was the Mom Centив CNBC Women at Work survey. In it was I think it was called the top reasons women say they are considering leaving their jobs. This was from 2023, was for a higher paying job. The second reason was less stress. And then the third reason was for a better work life balance. And those percentages were pretty close. It was like 52%, 51%, and then 48%. So if you think about that, right, like leaving for a higher paying job was only 1% higher than having a job with less stress.
Mm.
And then 48% was right below that. And that was the third reason, which was having a better work life balance. So these are the top three priorities, right? So I think that, the goal is that the companies have to promote the importance of mental health in the workplace. They have to teach their managers how to identify and support mental health issues. At a corporate policy level, we need better policies to support new moms coming back to the workforce.
Yeah.
There are experts in this field, right, who are able to really come in and help the leaders of these organizations identify like where the holes are, what they need, and provide all kinds of support, not just to the working mothers, but to any working parent. But in addition to the managers who often feel helpless around a lot of these issues because they don't know how to support the working moms or what they can expect from them, right? And so, like, there's a lot that working moms need. They need, right? Like, we've talked about how, your brain literally changes.
Oh, yes.
And there was a recent research study that, you can predict from an MRI of a woman's brain whether she has been pregnant or not. Did you know that?
Oh, no, I did not.
Yeah, this is so cool. So the gray matter in the brain changes. And I'm not a neurologist, but my understanding is that when you become pregnant, gray matter in your brain shrinks, and it can last up to 2 years that way. And that's biological, because you start to focus on other things, right? So it allows the mom to attach to the baby, respond to the baby's needs, right? And so other things kind of go by the wayside, right? Things that you might have been better at before, maybe you're not so good at. And this isn't a deficit, right? It actually can make you a much, much better employee in a lot of ways because you're much more in tune to social cognitions, perhaps than you were before. But so women need empathy, and their managers need to understand these things, right? Like they need empathy, they need flexibility. Managers need to be able to enable them to be more productive, and to work faster and to continue to be leaders. But they also have to understand that these workers are coming back under a totally new scenario, even though the job might be the same, right? Their lives are completely different.
I agree.
Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense.
I think having the employer understand that there are still physical and mental and emotional challenges that can last long after the maternity leave, right? Which can impact your day to day, is super important. And And even if you didn't birth the baby yourself, right? Let's say you had a surrogate or you adopted a baby, the transition to motherhood or to parenthood is a huge transition, right? It's like take your life here and turn it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
upside down, right? So even if you don't give birth and you're not having physical changes, you're certainly having sleep deprivation
Oh gosh.
and mental and emotional challenges, and the structure of your life is completely different, right?
It's just hard. It's
Yeah,
hard.
it's very hard. It's very hard. But what happens is that they're then expected to come back and pick up right where they left off.
First of all, it's an unfair expectation to even expect a pregnant woman that's working to be doing as much as she was doing before she was pregnant.
Correct.
So even after she has delivered and she's back, I think, listen, it's a thousand times, I don't know, so different. So a lot of grace has to be given. And as you said, there's a lot of things that fall by the wayside, but there's a lot of things that also get heightened.
Mm-hmm.
So we can be more productive in some other ways that we probably weren't before. So it can be more beneficial to the company. We just have to know. No, I think managers just need to know their employers, where their employers are at, and how to go about placing them in terms of, okay, all right, so you're better at this now. Here, let's try if we can use the dynamics of the change here.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of always saying, well, you're not doing this, that's how you were doing it, because it also impacts how the mother comes back and how she feels.
Sure. And there's lots of little tweaks too, right? Like when you schedule meetings, like if you have a bunch of moms on your team, or even just one mom, maybe don't schedule the meetings at 8 a.m.
Please,
and 6 p.m., right?
please, yes, please.
Right. Like there's all kinds of, nuanced small ways even that you can make women feel heard and cared for in the workplace, right? That shows that you understand that their lives are not the same that they once were.
What are some of the financial resources that employees can use to defray some costs for mothers?
That I don't know. I think some of these companies have giant resources that they can use. But I can't really speak to what any company has or doesn't have. I mean, I think that companies that do have money that can provide, I mean, it doesn't even have to cost money, right? Like you can come up with ideas that, like, where you within the company are finding people who can support each other, right? Like even like a peer to peer kind of a thing, right? Or some sort of mentorship program, um, that doesn't have to cost money.
Or you
Um,
can get counselors to come in to speak to moms also, because sometimes moms need to talk.
sure, absolutely. I mean, that does cost money though, right? Because you have to
Right. Well,
hire.
that falls under the financial resources.
Yes, 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 exactly. Yes, I mean, gosh, my team would love to do that. And we've done that in certain
Mm-hmm.
companies before, where you do weekly groups with a team of women who maybe have just returned to work, right? Or you pair an older mentor with a younger new mom,
Right.
right? There's all kinds of ways, where even just bringing in speakers that are like, hey, somebody who talks, an accountant who talks about how your taxes change when you have children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like providing a lot of different resources.
Mm-hmm. Persons
um,
coming in to talk about the child, how to go about parenting, because a lot of new moms don't know, and they're
yeah,
seeking because they just don't know.
yeah, exactly.
So that's some financial support that the workplace can provide for them, especially when they see that there's a problem. Because sometimes the moms come in, they haven't slept, and they're coming to work and they are done. And some resources that can help, a room for moms. I'm not saying that all moms should go in a room and hang out, and but I'm just saying to just sometimes people just need a 5 minute power nap, to come back up to do what they need to do. Because sometimes they don't get that at home.
Yes, exactly. Or even having like times where, okay, like between 6 and 8 p.m., is a no call, no email time,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I think creating a work culture where moms can also ask for what they need, right? Based on their own particular circumstances, right? And having flexibility, right? Like perhaps some women are heavily resourced in the morning and they don't need extra childcare in the morning, but night is pandemonium,
Right.
right? And maybe they're much sharper in the morning than they are at
In the
night,
evening. Mm-hmm.
right? And so
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be the most productive, from 7 a.m. to 12 noon,
Right.
right? Like allowing women to figure out what works best for them in terms of their own functioning, but also like in their family system, and having ways that they can work at those times where they can be most productive. There's all kinds of
Yeah,
all
there's all
kinds of
kinds of way. I mean, it's just to sit and figure it out. And I mean, if it is that people don't know or companies don't know, have the conversation with the moms in the workplace. They'll tell
Mhm.
and you can just come to an agreement on something. But um, to have productivity and for the workplace or the work environment to thrive, consideration is also needed.
Sure. And it makes, as I said, there's people like my team and tons of other people who, have already thought these things out, right? And have
Mhm.
figured out or know because of the population that we serve, like what women in the workplace at these different developmental, reproductive moments need to be most productive. And so, companies who do have resources that can lean on other people to get this information and to gather from the specific managers, like, okay, what are your biggest challenges here in this area, right? And how can we help?
Speaking about your team, Perry, where is it that we can find you and your team?
We are at www.wholeheartmaternalmentalhealth.com.
Mhm.
Or I can be reached on my cell at 215-840-3554.
Mhm.
And email is Perri Shaw Borish
Mhm.
at wholeheartpsych.com.
Okay, okay. And if persons want to call in to speak to a counselor, they can do that. They can do so also.
Sure. Yes, we have therapists who speak Hebrew, Spanish, and Russian. And everyone is trained and certified in perinatal mood and anxiety disorders, as well as
Mhm.
loss and grief. So, as long as everyone is not completely booked, we would love to hear from people.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you again, Perry. Is there any last words you want to leave with them before we go?
No, just like I just love you, and I think you're the best that you do this. Thank you so much for doing this for all of us.
Thank you so much, Perry, to come and talk about it. I mean, this is something that needs to be spoken about, and you have been available, and I'm thanking you for that.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for facilitating this.
Thank you also for being on here. I really appreciate you. Really do
Oh,
appreciate you. Thank you.
thanks, Jade.
Yes. And thank you again, listeners, for listening to the Unfiltered by Jade. And we'll be back next week, Tuesday. Thank you.
Bam bam bide, bam bam bide, badu bidi, bam bam bide.